It's grade time, everyone. Your favorite part of this show. You wait all year long so you can hear what grades we give the players and the coaching staff for Orange County Soccer Club. We're going to get right into this. Let's get this thing started. Welcome to the Show of Champions. This is the Orange and Black Soccer Cast. How's it going, Orange County? Welcome to another episode of the Orange and Black Soccer Cast, the first and only show dedicated to Orange County Soccer Club, its fans and supporters. I'm your host, Ray Samora. I'm here to take you through this grading session for Orange County Soccer Club. And we're going classic style for this episode. Two of us, the originals. Dylan, welcome.
Thanks, Ray. It's weird to go back to this. It feels like it was so long ago, but I will just say I'm very thankful that we've been doing this for 6 years.
The only difference from our original time with this is we actually have producer Andy still in the background doing all this stuff. So it's not just the two of us today. Producer Andy is helping along, which makes it a lot better looking than it was when we were doing this on our own. So thank you, producer Andy, in the background for this episode and for every episode. Like I said, we're getting into grades. And if you haven't followed us in the past, grades typically take 2 episodes. We're going to start off with this episode, do half of the team, and then we will jump in next week with the remaining half of the team. Also, just a quick reminder, before we get the ball rolling on this, if you enjoy our content, you want to catch us live when we stream on Mondays at 8 p.m. Pacific time. If you want to react or interact with us on social medias, make sure you like, subscribe, share, everything. Give us the hearts, give us the thumbs up, subscribe to us however you listen to us, watch us, and interact with us. We love the interaction, all this. So please do so. A couple other things to get out of the way is end of the season. What is it? Awards. The Orange and Black Soccer Cast Awards. We just released the ballot yesterday. It's live. We've been getting some responses. Now is your time to go on and share with us what you think, who you think were the best players, your favorite players, the best moments of the season. And we've added some new twists to it. Oh, also don't forget the coveted guest of the year. And we've limited the guest of the year this year because we had so many guests to guests that cover other teams around the league. So unfortunately for some of our CLC guests that came on and helped us out this year, we don't have that award for you this year. Maybe we'll create something next year if we continue to get that kind of engagement with y'all or support. And there's also some new categories. We added some stuff so that us, the podcasters, potentially can win something this year. And interesting. And then, of course, the Hall of Fame, which we have going as well. And the last thing is our survey that we have put out. So you can let us know what you like, what you don't like, and how we can get better so you can enjoy hearing everything about Orange County Soccer Club from us, because we have fun doing so. Hopefully you enjoy what we have to say. With all that out of the way, let's get into the reason why people really are here on this episode. And that is the 2024 Orange and Black Soccer Cast player grades today. It's all players, no coaching staff today. And we're going to get the ball rolling with this. So for those that don't know, we based the order on least minutes played to most minutes played. And to be on the grade sheet, you have to have played at least a minute for Orange County Soccer Club in the 2024 season. So that gets things started with our first grade. And this is going to be for youngster who I believe is part of the academy, got called up for some action mid-season when the team was struggling with some injuries, made some appearances. I believe he helped me in my playing for Pride because I had him on my roster and he actually made an appearance or two in the month of June. If maybe I'm incorrect, but I know I added him because of the potential there to get still a point or two. Didn't help me, but still did so. Marcus Lee, played in 3 matches, no starts, 21 minutes. The key stat for him, 4 passes. So let's go into the grades, and I'm going to go to you first, Dylan. You can share what your grade was.
Yeah, unsurprisingly, and you're probably going to hear this a handful of times tonight, I gave him an incomplete. It was nice to see him kind of come in and play a handful of times. I'm trying to really quickly fact check if he actually came in the month of June. And yes, he played 1 minute in the month of June. So Man, look at that. Ray must be over the moon. Probably going to get a better grade for that. This is always kind of the case with Orange County, is we have a handful of players make 20 to 30 minutes of a season. But usually it's a good spot for, hey, you're here this year, and hopefully we see you get a few hundred minutes next year.
Yeah, it's a stepping stone type of thing. And we've seen players do this in the past where they make brief appearances in a season. The next season, they make that step up. Key example that we'll talk about later on, I believe next week, is Ashton Miles is a player that did something like that, where he got some spot minutes and then the next season has a great season. And by the way, it's still in an I Here Today, but we did retrieve some grades from some of our co-hosts. So we'll be sharing some of those. So I believe Larry agreed with you on the grade, Dylan. He also gave an incomplete. My grade for Marcus, I gave him an S+. He's a youngster. He's under 18, so he's getting the elementary school grades. That's the way I've always done it, Dylan. I know you all don't like it, but that's the way I did it. He's getting an S+ from me just because I liked some of the potential I see from him. I'm hoping it's that sort of teaser for next season.
That's amazing. Ray, I'm surprised you passed up an opportunity to mention that Marcus, and shout out to Bruce Andy for putting this in the chat, is actually at UCI now. So if we want to roll back, zot, and good luck to you, Marcus.
Zot. That's a cool thing to see. And there's been a few players that either go from OC to UCI or do the opposite, go from UCI to OC, which is pretty cool to see. One of the great to mention is DK, who's one of our great writers who's been on the show also. I think he sort of agrees with me. He's in a rough area where I was. He gave a B-. In letter grades for like high school level, there's A, B, C, D, F. I believe for the elementary style, it's like E, S, and then like something that's not great, and then something that's horrible. So there's only 4 levels. So DK sort of agrees with me on that. Dylan, I'll hand it off to you. You can introduce our next.
Yes, one Nico Ruiz. Saw a handful of minutes in 2023. Saw a handful of minutes again in 2024. There's probably a period in the year where we all expected to probably see him start making some minutes. But still, 34 minutes from 5 matches. Just one of those players that's kind of on the fringe of the squad. Mostly the development's going to be from learning and playing with the academy side. He's one that I'm looking forward to seeing in the next couple of years, but under 45 minutes played, which isn't necessarily a hard, fast rule for me, still gets an incomplete. DK gave him a B, though. So while I may be being harsh, there was plenty to be excited about.
Yeah, DK went with a B. I went with an S, so slightly under Marcus Lee for me, for Nico Ruiz. And I think it's more based on the excitement that I have for these players. Both of them didn't really get an opportunity to shine too much on the field for the first team, but I think there's some potential from both of these players. And I think Nico is a good part of the pipeline for Orange County, which Orange County has proven they can do on there. Our friend Larry agreed with you, Dylan. Incomplete. I'm going to assume it's because 34 minutes, it's hard to really give an assessment on a player that has only played 34 minutes. Moving on to our next player on this list is another one of the youngsters for Orange County. And this season, we saw some youngsters play because of injuries, spot minutes here and there. The great thing is we had some depth, so we didn't have to rely on some of these youngsters for big minutes. But it was, again, nice teasers to see some of the youngsters. Ryan Ayub, 3 matches, no starts, 35 minutes, 14 passes, and a neat 4 duels won. And I always wonder how they truly calculate that stat. That's a fascinating one for me. I'm going to give Larry's obvious on this because we've seen it with the first 2. He gave an incomplete. Again, I'm assuming not enough, for his eyes to give a reasonable grade. I went with an S as well. Satisfactory from Ryan. Performed the way you would expect one of the academy players to be performing when they're given spot minutes on the first team. Again, another player, the academy's strong when you have these players coming from the academy that you can bring up instead of having to maybe look elsewhere and bring a loan here and there to fill some of these spots is nice to see. And Ryan was able to do that, but not enough for me to really give a true assessment. So thus the S.
Yeah, I got to give Ryan a bit of credit here. I mean, 35 minutes played, and I think, let me try and do the math here, 75% of those came in one match. It was a 4-1 win against Memphis. So we're talking about a 19-year-old. His time's going to come. Unfortunately, when you're attacking midfielder and Brian Olowski and Chris Hagart are also in the team in front of you, and Cameron Dunbar is in the team, you're not going to see a lot of time until those players are either not at the club or not playing. So kind of a victim of circumstance. He got an incomplete from me. DK gave him a C. So, I feel a need to apologize to Ryan. I thought you held your own, but oh well. DK, ever the critic.
But you still went with an incomplete. You didn't want to give him an actual grade. So that's the difference between you, DK, and myself.
An incomplete grade. But yeah, maybe I'm being too harsh. I don't know. It's for someone else to decide.
And as we're going through this, for those of you that are watching and participating live, share your thoughts on the grades. Do you agree with myself? Do you disagree with Dylan? Either way, it's correct. So just let us know. Dylan, take us to our next grade.
I certainly will, but I feel like you maybe are trying to lead our listeners to a certain way to disagree with me constantly. Mr. Benjamin Barjolo, and this is one of the hardest incomplete grades for me. We didn't see a lot of him, 48 minutes. But he's in and around in the team, and also every time we'd ask one of the young players, who's the next you? Who's going to make it next? Who's coming out of the academy? Benjamin Barjolo. Every single time it's him. And I think that speaks a lot about, one, the culture of the team and kind of the blending of the youth development with, a team that is a playoff contender nearly every year. And it also speaks to Benjamin's quality. I'm hoping to see a lot of him next year. I don't know what that looks like for, the 10 other people that'll be playing with him, but I'm looking forward to it. For now, incomplete. And DK, which I'm just going to disagree with from the get-go, gave him a C+. That feels very harsh.
That does feel harsh. Yeah, that does feel harsh for maybe it's, and keep in mind when you're grading, sometimes you're going to have some bias. You're going to grade on the expectation you have of a player. Maybe you didn't see what you thought you'd see out of a player, or vice versa. You saw something more than you expected out of a player. And sometimes that takes into account a grade. So two players could be equal, but if one of them you weren't expecting much out of, one of them you were expecting a lot out of, you might have the one that you didn't expect much out of getting a better grade because of that sometimes. And that's just human nature sometimes with that. I will stay with this. Larry agrees with you. He's still on the incomplete roller coaster with you. You guys are just sort of not even started. You haven't even gone up the lift yet. You guys are just sitting there waiting to get the things started. For some reason, you didn't want to do
sitting there. I'm waiting for 2025. I'm waiting for the Benjamin Barjolo show. Okay.
There we go.
That's what I'm waiting for. I'm fully on board. I'm hyped.
I think most Orange County fans are going to agree with you and myself when we say this. This is probably the most exciting youth player we have that I think everyone's expecting stuff out of, because we've heard other players say Benjamin Barjolo's the one to look out for. And you've seen some flashes in the academy side when you get to hear or see anything about the academy. He seems to be a player people talk about. I went with an S just because, again, I haven't seen much yet. I'm hoping there's going to be stuff. And I think with the high expectations with Benjamin Barjolo, I think maybe I had hoped that we would see more of him this season. So maybe that's why I'm being a little bit more harsh. Like I gave Marcus Lee an S+. I'm giving Benjamin Barjolo an S. And I know it's not his fault. He doesn't control his playing time, but it is what it is.
I say he earns the playoff minutes. Again, only 48 minutes, but he earned the right to be in and around the team, and he earned the right to come in because, Orange County looked flat in that last match against the Switchbacks. Why not throw him in there and see what he can do? Because I guarantee you, if you watch this team week in, week out, and you've only seen him play, I think 34 minutes all season long prior to that, I can tell you the Switchbacks had no idea what to do with him.
Well, again,
and he's a good player.
And this is why fans are excited about the potential here. And I think this is one of those players that follows in the pipeline of some of these young players that maybe didn't start with Orange County, but were brought in from other academies around the country. You look at Kobe Henry, you look at Korede Oshandina, you look at Bryce Jamison. They were brought over from other academies around the country came to Orange County because you get opportunities if you can work hard and prove yourself to move on to bigger and better things. And I think that's the pipeline here. Benjamin is sort of the cream of the crop on that pipeline as the next person to take that step. I think we're all anticipating someone like a Bryce Jamison is going to take the next steps sooner rather than later. And this is going to be who slots in, filling into that role of the next one up, the next player with that opportunity to prove themselves and make big things. So that's always exciting to see. So there we go. And we're going to move on to the next one. And now we're getting to a player. I think this is a player that lacked minutes due to injury. It wasn't due to ability. It wasn't due to anything else but injury, which was sort of disappointing for a lot of Orange County fans. This is another one where Larry went with an incomplete. He didn't want to do a grade on Charlie Asensio. I agreed. I gave an incomplete on this one also. And my reason for the incomplete is because we didn't get to see enough because of injury. It wasn't because he wasn't good enough to be out there. I think we were all anticipating some contribution minutes from Charlie Asensio in the 2024 season. And unfortunately, due to injury, we didn't get to see it. So Larry and I both went with an incomplete. What about you, Dylan?
I also went with an incomplete. I'm actually surprised we've agreed upon anything here. But yeah, I forget exactly what it was. I don't know if it was a torn muscle or ligament in his shoulder, but it was a pretty severe shoulder surgery. And I remember this was tail end of March. Kind of the rumor in and around the club was that's it for his year. And you know what? He took 6 months, but he fought his way back, and he fought his way back onto the bench, and he played a handful of minutes. So, you know, I feel for him. I would have liked to have seen him play more. I do think we got a lot out of someone we'll talk about a little bit later on Pedro Guimaraes as a result. But, you know, these things happen. And like you said about, hey, who's the next man up? You know, Charlie was the next man up when Ryan Dogman went down. And we needed a few more after that.
And then DK also provided a grade, right,
yes.
Dylan?
I am so sorry. DK gave him a C. So, you know,
average is really, when you think what a C means, it means average. And here's the thing I will say about Charlie, which is a good thing to see when you're a supporter of a club. He could have easily, right? He didn't really get a chance until the very end of the season. He could have been one of those players that says it's not worth it to come out of injury, risk, re-injuring something, maybe because you're trying to get out sooner rather than later, or because you'll get some players to be like, hey, I got hurt. I'm going to be back for the last 2 or 3 matches. I might as well just rehab the rest of the season and look forward to next season. No, Charlie made the attempt to get better, rehabilitate himself, and get some minutes on the pitch, which is helpful for a player. If you're trying to prove that you are someone that's committed to helping a team out instead of what some players may look like when they're just taking a check is I guess the term some people may use. So it was good to see that he worked hard and came back, even though it was at the very tail end of the season, to try and at least prove himself, make a contribution, which was nice to see. All right, Dylan, moving on. Go for it.
We went from one Georgia native to another, and now we're going from one left back to another. Elisa Viejos, Pedro Guimaraes. We've had 40 different pronunciations, and I think we all pretty much have the same grade for this one. I'm giving him a B. He came in. He was a big unknown. We didn't really know what to expect. He's a different kind of fullback from the other offerings that we had on the table. But he was very, very good. And it was a bit of a surprise that, hey, this is a kid that's out here doing this. Came up big, defensively mostly, but slotted in like he belonged. And just another example that kind of the academy is working as it's supposed to. I gave him a B on this one. DK also gave him a B. Ray,
and
dissenting opinion.
Larry won up to you all. He went with a B+ for Pedro. I think, again, Pedro is one of those players you get to Orange County because Orange County has proven that you can bring in players from other academies, whether it's smaller, lower level academies or MLS academies. You can get players into Orange County. If they prove themselves, they move on. I think that's the reason why you have Pedro here with the opportunity. He's probably not getting these minutes with the first team at LAFC. before he coming to Orange County. He gets first team minutes with Orange County, gets to train with grownups. And I think I said it earlier in the season on our show that I think there was only one match where he looked like a 16-year-old playing with men. Like every other match you saw him, he looked like he belonged out there, physically and even skill wise and tactic wise. He looked like he knew what he was doing out there, which is amazing when you put into the mindset of his age. It's awesome to see. With that said, the grade that I gave Pedro was an E, which if you don't know elementary school grading, that's similar to an A. It's an excellent. So I gave him a very high grade. And again, this is part of the stuff where he came in midseason. I didn't know much about him. I just knew he was a youngster. And obviously we've had some youngsters come to this team in the past that didn't really take the step. And he came in, he shocked me, surprised me. And again, he looked like he belonged, even though he was a youngster playing with men, except for the one match where he looked lost out there. So I went with an E, and I think that's more based on the excitement he provides. Just like we were talking about Benjamin Barjolo, I think Pedro is going to provide very good excitement for Orange County, and I think fans are going to be very pleased if he continues his development at the level he is at. Moving on, our next player we will be grading is another youngster that was part of this team, but this one was on the team via a loan from, I believe, the San Diego MLS team. Is it San Diego FC, or what do they call themselves down there?
Megatron's Butthole, I think. I'm not exactly sure of what they're called. Monochrome FC.
There we go.
Gradient FC.
Duran Furry came over to Orange County on loan. He got some minutes. He got actually a couple early season starts. I believe there was a match where Colin Shuttler was a late scratch. He got in there, he proved himself, and he earned a second start. Hit or miss on the performances out there, but again, a youngster, and goalie is a position. It's typically an older position. If you look at some of the best goalies in the world, they typically are in their late 20s through their 30s, up until maybe even their 40s. A lot of the top goalkeepers, you don't typically get a young teenage or early 20s goalkeeper, with the exception of a few here and there. It's typically a little bit more veteran, a little bit more mature, physically grown up. But Duran had a nice performance when he, I believe it was in San Antonio, that he had a standout performance and earned a second start, or the San Antonio might have been the second start. I forget which one, but for my grade, I gave him a S. Did some good stuff. Was a little shaky. Didn't get to see much of him. But again, this is someone, unfortunately, is not part of our future, but he's going to have a bright future in this game if he continues the development where he is. Larry went with a C. I think probably similar thinking with his grades. Average. Some good stuff, some not so good stuff. And go from there. Dylan.
Yeah, 3 appearances. That San Antonio match was actually his first match of the year, and then he played the second the week after that against Sacramento, and I do remember that match greatly. There wasn't a lot that I'll put it this way, we conceded 2. I don't think there was much that he could have done. I don't think it really mattered who was back there at that point. I gave him a C minus. I realize the bias in this. I don't love an MLS loan, and I did not love the final 5 minutes in Phoenix. And unfortunately, that's really all it took for me. That did my head, and I think it was the 87th minute, and just a bit of an error. But you already talked about it. It's why we see typically older goalkeepers with enough match experience. Those mistakes don't happen. And hey, he had to learn, and now he's plying his trade in the Danish Youth League. Oh, and Keith also gave him a C+. So I'm just learning I'm the harshest grader here, and I feel really bad for being mean to a bunch of largely children.
And for those that don't know, Keith is DK, just in case you're unaware of the match there. Moving right along, we're going to go from a young goalkeeper to another goalkeeper that we had on loan. This was a loan goalkeeper more due to a need at the time. I believe at this point, Duran was away from the team already. And I believe there was a moment where Colin Shuttler was going to be out. and you're looking at bringing in a goalkeeper. Tomas Gomez is the goalkeeper they brought in on loan. This is more of a experienced veteran goalkeeper. And I believe, if I can recall correctly, the few appearances he made, I was impressed with what I saw. I didn't feel nervous when he was between the posts. I felt like he was a capable backup. Now, obviously, Colin Shuttler is my goalkeeper for this team. That's who I pick first and foremost on any match where he's available. But to be a good team, you have to have a reliable backup. And at the time, he brought in Gomez, didn't quite know what to expect. He came in and he provided a steady hand and a steady body in the goal, a little bit more physical than Colin and or Duran are between the sticks. And I think he did a good job for us. And I was pleased with the work he put in on that loan to help us out. I gave him a B-. Larry didn't quite, I guess, appreciate what he saw as much as I did, although only slightly. He went with a C+. So maybe it's just we have different vision of what we expected out of our short loan backup goalkeeper. Dylan.
Yeah, I gave him a B. He came on loan, kind of an emergency loan, as he mentioned, from Real Salt Lake. Hadn't played. Still didn't play when he really went back. It had been actually quite a bit of time before since he'd played in a real competitive situation. And he came in and he was actually quite good. Made a handful of really great saves, but otherwise was just a dependable, solid goalkeeper. He's 31. That's probably why you get that. This isn't the Tomas Gomez that showed up in 2000 and what was it, 19, I think, with St. Louis. A few years down the line from that, and I think that maturity really showed. He was thrown in at a really awful time for the club, performed really well, and that's all you could really hope for in a situation like this. I was excited. Like I said, I gave him a B, and TK also gave him a B. So take that. I'm not the harshest grader.
Well, I'm going to ask you, Dylan, what would you grade those leg muscles, man? On this picture, if you're not watching the live stream, those muscles look pretty damn strong on his legs. What would you grade that, Dylan, compared to you?
Compared to my legs, I feel like we have pretty similar build. So I'm going to give him an A, because I'm also going to give myself an A. This is to the Tree Trunk Thigh Gang. Represent.
There we go. All right, let's move right along. And we go from a experienced shot stopper to another one of the young players, but this is a young player. We did some of the younger players that got spot minutes. This is one that actually got meaningful game time throughout the season, even to the point where picking up 4 yellow cards in just under 500 minutes. So roughly a yellow card every 120 minutes or so. Take it for what it is. It either can be inexperience, youth, or it could be aggressiveness, or it could just be, boneheaded play. But he did that. He did get the 1 red card, which was a boneheaded play when he did get it. I believe it was on a yellow card, went in, studs up, got a second yellow card, which turned into a red. But with that said, just under 500 minutes, 5 shots. And I think Ben probably should have had a goal if he would have gotten a good piece of 1 or 2 of those shots. I think, if I can recall, 193 passes is really good for a young player like that, getting some good minutes, quality minutes. I went with a B for Ben. That's what I went with. Larry went with a B plus for Ben. What did you do, Dylan?
I love that. I gave him a B-, which feels a little bit harsh. I think that aggressiveness, that combativeness is a good thing out of a young player. That red card, to be honest with you, probably didn't make a huge difference in the grand scheme of that Tampa Bay match. DK gave him a B+. He's an exciting player, and it was nice to get to talk to him this year. I'm looking forward to what's to come with him.
Go ahead, Dylan. You can introduce our next.
Yeah. Well, another kind of emergency signing for Orange County this year. Another signing that hadn't played in a while. Jordan Chavez came in when we had pretty much no other center backs, and it took him a little bit to get going, but for a while, he did seem like one of the better options that Orange County had available to them. We didn't see a lot of him in the second half of the year. I think a lot of that was just circumstance of, hey, if Dylan Powers and Marcus Nakim and Ashton Miles and maybe also sometimes Andrew Fox are fit, you're not going to see a minute. It's unfortunate, but he did a very good job in the time that he was playing and was an important part of the team. So I gave him a B minus. Keith also gave him a B minus.
Yeah, this is where you're getting someone like Jordan Chavez brought in because we were decimated with injuries in the back center backfield. Brought him in. He played key minutes with his time that he got, again, due to injuries. But you're correct, right? Once you get healthy in that position, and I would assume Jordan knew he's going to be at the bottom of the picking order when you have players at the caliber of Marcus Nakeem, Dylan Powers, Andrew Fox, Ashton Miles, who proved to be really good for the club this season. And let's remember, Jordan was brought in mid-season, I believe, on a short-term contract, and it got extended to the remainder of the season after the performances he put on. So he earned himself an extra month or two of paycheck and opportunity to potentially play and at least train with a USL championship caliber team that was fighting for really good positions. So in the end, he comes in and he gets a little bit extra money, gets a little bit of experience. He proves himself at this level that he can compete. And I would assume if he's not back with Orange County next year, there's going to be some offers for Jordan. If not at the USL Championship level, even at the USL League One level, he's proven himself that he can compete at this level. So obviously, if no one at this level wants to offer him a job, I would assume one of the USL League One teams will come with that opportunity. With that said, the grade that I gave Jordan was a B, and Larry agreed with me. He went with a B also. All right, are we ready to move on? Next up.
I do believe so. It's to take a second. It's so weird to be back in this time where it's just you and me. Brad's not forgetting to unmute himself.
Larry's not talking for 10 minutes.
It's a weird one.
I'm the one. When you have Larry and me on a show, there's like multiple people that like to talk a lot. It can make things difficult, but it's nice. This is the classic style, man. I love it. Next up on the grading is Mr. Christian Sordo, someone that came over. I think people were pretty excited with Christian coming over to the team in 2024. I believe he came over from Miami. There was some hope that he was going to be able to provide some good stuff in there. I don't know if he met expectations on that or if he underperformed. Obviously, there were some injury issues that came along throughout the season with him. And I'm going to assume there will be some grades that are going to be, and this is all part of the last thing you saw out of someone is what you're going to remember the most. And, unfortunately, the final performance for Christian this season was not his best moment on the pitch. I believe if y'all can recall in Colorado, there was a few times where he just looked a step slow or looked to give up on a ball when there potentially was the opportunity to get to it, made some bad passes, this and that. But let's hopefully look at the grade for the full season. I'm going to give you the chance to go first, Dylan.
Yeah, this was a hard one to grade. And if we look at it, 26 matches played, but only 7 of those were starts. A shade under 1,000 minutes. Just the solitary goal and assist. I don't think he was bad. I actually thought he was quite good in the essentially cameo role that he was kind of thrust into. I gave him a B minus as a result. DK gave him a C, which feels very harsh. That feels like a grade based on his 42 minutes in Colorado Springs. But taking kind of a step back and a wider look at his season, usually he was getting 15 minutes at the end of a match to try and do something. He strung together possession and kind of created a link for Orange County to get through the midfield with. That was important. And to look at the last 2 months of the season, he didn't play pretty much at all. And I kind of wonder, was this just he was hurt and kind of rushing back to try and make it to the playoffs to be available to the team? So, I didn't hear anything about him complaining. I don't hear any questions about his professionalism. He came in, and I think he did a pretty good job.
Larry was slightly less harsh as DK, but a little bit more harsh than you. He went with a C+ on that. My grade for Christian was a C+ as well. Again, and I'm gonna be honest with this. Sometimes it's gonna be, based on what I saw last, and unfortunately, that's what is stuck in my head sometimes when I give the grades. When I do these grades, I go with my first inclination. I don't try and really overthink it and change it and back and forth. I go with what pops in my head first. And I will be honest, sometimes that means the last thing I saw from you maybe influences the grade a little bit. But I agree with you, Dylan. The minutes he got during the season, he contributed. He looked good, part of the team. It's hard when you come to a new team, and it's hard when that team has depth, so it's difficult to get into the lineup. I also wonder if maybe people expected him to get more minutes, and he just somehow didn't earn those minutes, either due to injury or due to just struggles to find the right niche with Orange County.
Yeah, this really feels like, again, if you're an attacking midfielder, your moments are probably going to be really minor for Orange County, just by nature of look who plays in front of you.
We move on. I think this is going to be the first time there's going to be a very wide gap on some of these grades. And that's Mr. Kevin Partida, someone that in 2023 showed he is a key part of a midfield for a team that's competing. I know Kevin dealt with some injuries this season, which can be difficult, made some appearances, unfortunately got re-injured right at the start of the playoffs. He got re-injured the last match of the season. We didn't get to see him in the playoffs, which I think many people felt if he was available in the playoffs, Orange County, how many times can I say playoffs in like 30 seconds there too? But I believe a lot of people felt with Kevin Partida, it's a different outcome for Orange County, even potentially against a Colorado Springs team that's very difficult that eventually won the championship. 978 minutes played, so just shy of 1,000 minutes, which obviously is not what you expect out of one of your key players. 431 passes, 14 tackles, 12 interceptions. Interesting, we didn't include the card accumulation because everyone knows Kevin Partida likes to accumulate cards throughout the season. He probably collects more cards than a baseball card collector does. But yeah, Dylan didn't like that one. That was a little goofy. Dylan, because I just ruined your night, go for it. What did you think of Kevin Partida this year?
Oh, you think that ruined my night? I gave him a C. Look, 15 matches, 12 starts, 9 yellow cards. As obviously a holding midfielder, you're going to be competitive. You're going to pick up cards. Kyle Scott picks up cards. He was the only person that picked up more cards than Kevin Partida. Obviously played a lot more than Kevin Partida. But some of the yellows were just really dumb and did hinder what Orange County could do because he was booked. And it hindered what he could do because he was booked. You do have to live with it, but a bang average year for him. That being said, congratulations to him on the birth of his second child. I look so mean here. DK gave him an A-. I think everyone else was just really excited that we had a proper holding midfielder playing as a 6 when he came back in this year.
Well, remember when I told our listeners to follow us on social media so you can let us know when I'm right and also let us know when Dylan's wrong. This is one of those moments, and my other graders will show why Dylan is wrong, why I'm right. Kevin Partida, a key part of this team. Without him, you struggle. With him in there, it's good. It's beautiful. It's amazing. And I feel like, again, we missed him during parts of the season where we struggled. We missed him in the playoffs when we struggled. But when he was in there, and you can't fault someone for injuries. They can't control when their body breaks down on them. But the moments he was in there, he showed why he is one of the key players for Orange County. Dylan, you were raising your hand slightly.
Yeah, actually, I do think we can blame someone for his injuries. We can blame you for that last injury because you were so concerned that someone was going to get hurt. And if you hadn't manifested that, we would have had Kevin Partida in the playoffs.
Hey,
so thanks.
That's not my fault. I was letting you know why I was worried for that last match. That's all that was. Back to the grades though. Kevin Partida, for me, I gave him an A-. Larry was the nicest for Kevin Partida with an A, no minus behind it. But again, this is one of those players that, when healthy, was a key contributor to Orange County's success in 2024. And it sucks that there was injuries that derailed some of the time there. And the honest, true, really good graders aren't going to fault a player for being injured and lower the grade to a middling grade because of injury. Dylan, go for it.
Whoa. Okay, to defend myself, I gave him a C because he picks up a lot of unnecessary yellows. That's all. Hey, on to our next player, Thomas Amon.
Wait. No, Dylan, you're not going to get to move on from that one really quick. Everyone that has listened to the show knows that I am a fan of a player getting yellow cards, for aggressiveness. I love aggressive play. And Kevin Partita, most of the time, yes, he does get a couple stupid yellow cards here and there, but most of his yellow cards is because he's being really aggressive or they're tactical yellow cards. Every so often you get a bonehead yellow card. But again, I'm not going to fault a player for that because you get what you get with it. And most of the time he's smart enough not to get a second yellow. Although he did that at the end of last season, but that like last season, 2023, but that's a different thing. Go Dylan.
Yeah. Thomas Among. At one point, he was Orange County's top goal scorer. Actually, for a significant portion of the year, he was Orange County's top goal scorer by nature of 5 of his 6 goals coming in the opening 3 months of play. And then, unfortunately, and as is common with Thomas Among, picked up an injury and then came back and I think picked up another injury again. He was a little bit stop-start, and I think that's why we really didn't get him to shine. And I think another part of it was, hey, there's no San Diego in this league anymore, and so you knew that he wasn't going to show up and bang in a brace or a hat trick and absolutely terrorize, 11 people on the field, a further 10 on the bench, and 5,000 people in the stands twice a year. So I was a little bit underwhelmed with his season. I'll admit that I'm being a little bit harsh based on his appearance in Colorado, which I think at this point everyone's going to get a bad grade for. I gave him a C just because I think we all expected more from him. But DK gave him a B.
And we all know your C comes from he was injured. So you're going to lower the grade because of that. That we've learned that's the pattern for Dylan. Because look at DK gives a B. Well, I gave a B. And Larry gives a B+. And again, I think DK, myself, and Larry were looking at what he did when he was on the pitch. Yes, I think there was some expectations that weren't met from Tomas when he was on the pitch, but he also was a very good contributor. You called it out, at many points early in the season, he was the leading goal scorer because no one else on the team could figure out how to score a goal other than our goalkeeper and some of our defenders. But here's what I'm going to say for Tomas for the grades. And I don't care. I'm making the executive decision on this is we all have to bump up his grade, like a half a grade, because I've never seen a player hit the back of his legs on the crossbar when jumping up for an attempt on the ball. And we saw that in this match where he got upended while jumping high in the air and the back of his legs hitting the crossbar. I think that's a crazy, and he didn't get injured from that whole interaction, which I think was the crazier thing. I think we all have to bump up the grades like a half notch just because of the outrageous athleticism we saw from Tomas in that moment. Do you agree with me, Dylan?
You offer a good point. I'm not sure I'm convinced, but I will say maybe he deserves a half letter bump or a plus because he is apparently going to be the face of the league needing to protect its players better. I now on second thought remember that incident. I remember him getting elbowed in the face, and I think what happened is he like bit through his lip or something, and then was like, "No, I'll see you guys next weekend, and I'll keep playing." So
there you go.
He deserves some credit for that. I think he's tough as nails. This one.
Oh, producer Andy, what you got?
I don't want anyone to forget when he got that tooth knocked out. I think in Monterey Bay. Or Oakland, maybe was it Oakland?
I think we learned after the fact on that it wasn't the tooth knocked out, but he bit through his lip. I think is what I heard. Unless that's a completely different thing.
I misunderstood.
No, I think he bit through his lip. I should say he didn't do it by choice. He got hit in the face, and also just like knocked around the whole bunch for the 2 weeks prior to that too. It was every week.
Oh yeah,
we were talking about, hey, is a ref going to do something about this? Because certainly at this point, it's coming.
And I think this was the part of the season where I sort of made a reference to Shaquille O'Neal with Thomas Among, where he looks bigger and stronger. So he's not going to, refs aren't going to give him the benefit of the doubt when he gets knocked down or pushed around, because they're going to look at him and be like, hey, you should be able to take that, which I'm not saying is a fair assessment of it. And that's the way it should be called. But I can see where that was happening. And to be honest with producer Andy, talk about the tooth being knocked out. I think the broadcast that matched the whole rest of the broadcast when we were talking about Thomas Among, they were talking about that he had lost a tooth or something like that, and that's why he was so angry. But I believe it, and again, anyone can correct me if they heard differently, but I believe when I spoke to the front office about that, it actually was that the tooth went all the way through the bottom lip, and thus that's why there was a massive amount of blood also at the time when he came out, and why he was so upset about everything that happened there. But who knows? Sometimes you don't hear the whole story too, so who knows really what happens there. Moving right along. Yes, the next player we're going to talk about, I believe, doesn't come to Orange County if Brian Olowski stays healthy. I believe if Brian Olowski's healthy, Chris Hagart is not coming back to the USL or stateside, to be fair. But as a need for a team, Chris came in, and you couldn't have asked for a more competent filler for Brian Olowski. Maybe not exactly Brian Olowski, but a similar role and a player that has some skills. And again, I talked about this earlier in the season. I was shocked when I looked up and found out how young Chris Hagart is, and to know that he came in and that he's already had all this massive experience at this level and elsewhere. I was dumbfounded by all that. But over 1,000 minutes, 406 passes, 2 assists, a goal, 3 yellow cards, which I'm sure Dylan isn't happy about, so is going to probably knock some points off the grade there for Chris. Larry went with an interesting B++, whatever that means. I didn't know that was an official grade of B++. I went with an A-. I was very pleased with what we got out of Chris Hagart in the role that was expected. And it's always going to be difficult to jump to a team mid-season, especially a team that was struggling mightily when Chris Hagart came over, and still be a positive breath of fresh air for the team. And he was part of that run up to under Coach Danny Stone that saw the team compete and fight and claw their way back into playoff contention and really potentially scare the eventual champions in Colorado Springs. That team, and Chris was part of it. Dylan.
Yeah, I gave Chris a B. I think he came in at a difficult time, and I think he offered a much different style of 10 than Brian Olowski. I think he's a little more direct than Brian. This was an interesting one. I went back and forth on this, but he basically showed up and got match fit, and he only missed one match from that point. And I mean, completely missed the whole match when we beat Rhode Island 1-0. That being said, just being able to offer so much and being so versatile where he could play and run wide to either wing and threaten from there, and he could play off the shoulder of Ethan Zubak, or he could press right alongside Ethan Zubak. Typically, if we saw it as a 4-4-2 under Danny Stone, out of possession, Chris Hagart is dropping into that 10 role, and largely, with the exception of the match against Colorado, doing a good job and doing good defensive work and really being a nuisance to other teams. I think Colorado just completely bypassed the midfield and as a result bypassed him. So overall, Chris, you've earned yourself a B. Thank you, Staubach, for loaning him to us because, while the stats don't look super beautiful, only the 2 assists and the 1 goal, he was an important part of the way that we moved the ball forward. And DK reflects that with a B+.
Perfect. Moving on, and this, when we were going through all this to get prepared, I was so positive that Sofian was part of the 2023 squad. It was so long ago that he was part of Orange County squad. He was an addition for 2024 and midseason parted ways amicably, or however that works. It's always the typical, we both sides have agreed to mutually go in different directions or whatever it was. Apparently he returned with some appearances in San Antonio in the second half of the season. So when you look at the stats we have up here, I think it's a combined Orange County San Antonio stat line. Dylan?
Correct. Yes. So if you're watching live, I'm very sorry. If you want the actual stats, Sofian played 820 minutes with Orange County. That was 12 of the 21 matches. He made 12 of his 13 starts with Orange County, and his 1 goal this season came with Orange County, and it was a beauty. He skinned 2 defenders on a turn and tucked it away, and it was wonderful. So since I've stolen it from you, I'm just going to say I gave him a B, and I was upset when he left, And I, as the late end of the season came in, was still pretty upset that he wasn't around, because I think he would have offered something and would have helped share the load on Kyle Scott's back. DK gave him a B-, which feels that's too harsh. I don't see
and this is one of those ones where you just wonder like what happened, because he was getting minutes, he was getting playing time, it seemed like everything was great, and then all of a sudden it was, we're splitting ways, we're parting.
It happens. We've seen it plenty of times, and maybe this is about the time that Carlson left too, so maybe he was
potentially,
or maybe he just really wanted to go back to Texas, because it's not for me, but it is for some people.
Yeah. Who knows? And I think part of the grade where Larry gave a grade, Larry's grade was.
That was great. For those listening, Ray is attempting to do the shrug emoji.
Yeah, Larry typed 3 shrug emojis. So I don't know how to verbally pronounce those other than shrug, I guess is what we would say. But I did the motion for those that were watching the video, which, hey, if you want to see what we're doing and not just hear what we're doing, watch us live every Monday, 8 p.m. on YouTube, and a couple other places, but YouTube's the main place to go. My grade, and I totally am messing stuff up now, I think. I don't know what I'm doing. There we go. For those that don't know, is I blacked out my grades so that Dylan couldn't see what they were before the show. So he's learning my grades as we go through live. My grade for Sofiane was dropped. He dropped the class. He left Orange County. He dropped, and so he gets a dropped grade.
Didn't we just? You know what? I don't want to get started onto this too much, but I don't think you can say he dropped the class if Orange County also let him go.
Well, I mean, if you drop a class, the teacher lets you do so. That's what happened here. Hey, move it on, Dylan. Go to the next one.
Yeah. Oh man, this one pains my heart to talk about. Brian Olowski. 15 matches played, 15 starts. Could anyone be surprised? He is going to be the number 10 that Orange County is going to play with. The ball is going to go through Brian Olowski and off of the wand that is his left foot. Got himself 2 goals and an assist in about half of the year. And then, as turf fields do, they claimed the life of his ACL. So Brian missed out from that point on. And that was a gut punch that Orange County did not need during one of the worst parts of its year. I'm giving him a B for what he did. I would have liked to have seen this, and seen what he had done kind of extrapolated across an entire season. We didn't get that this year. So it was better than, it was on par. Brian Olowski is one of the better creative players in this league, and what he offered us was right on board with that. DK agreed with me and also gave him a B.
And so we can translate it that Dylan probably thought he was an A, but because he only played half the season and was injured, lowers the grade to a B.
Oh, okay.
Even though his quality was really well.
You're right. It's his fault that, we had to play a match on turf.
You ready for conspiracy theory time? And I don't know anything. This is not insider information, but I wonder if you all recall a few weeks before the season ending injury, he went in hard to tap a ball into the goal at the goal line, racing against the defender to get it. And in doing so, bangs his knee against the post. I wonder if there was any trigger that led to the future injury. Dylan shaking his head no, but who knows? You never know.
I don't think that's how ligaments work. And I mean, I thankfully have not had my ACL surgically repaired, but that's a turning situation. So,
and I'll tell you this right now. You got Eric Allison watching live, does not agree with your Olowski grade and probably agrees at least with what I said when it comes to grade. Now he might not agree with my grade. I went with a B+, still better than what you and DK did. But I think he gets a B+.
I feel once again the need to defend myself. Brian Olowski is suffering by nature of being such a good player that my expectations for him are going to be incredibly high.
And when he gets injured, you're going to lower the grade because he didn't play a full season. Moving right along, our, I believe, final grade of the night is going to be a player we got on loan from Phoenix when Orange County needed some defensive help. And He played. I was shocked when I saw the number of minutes he played. I didn't remember him playing this many minutes. But Ryan Flood, coming to Orange County, played 19. Now, I got to wonder, is this he didn't play with Phoenix at all, right? Because I know, Dylan, you accumulated USL website stats. I don't think he played for Phoenix in 2024, but maybe he did. Who knows? But he came to Orange County. He contributed. He played well in what was needed. Maybe wondering where he was later in the season, but I guess when you have someone like a Ryan Dogman playing absolute, amazing and fantastic during the final stretch of the season, there's no room for your loanee from Phoenix, Ryan Flood. Andy, what's up?
Yeah, I believe Ryan Flood for Orange County had 16 matches, 12 starts, 1,175 minutes. So he had a few minutes or a few matches with Phoenix that are counted in that number.
Correct.
Yeah, and I will say this, don't blame producer Andy for it. We're going to throw it all on Dylan. And like I said at the beginning of the show, if you want to let Dylan know where he's wrong, that's the way to do so, is follow us on social media. But I will say, I was pleasantly surprised with Ryan Flood. I was a little bit worried about the loan. And this is just me as a soccer person. You're getting someone from your sort of enemy, your rival. It's never an easy taste to take, but I've grown accustomed to it at this point, because now we had Ryan Flood, who performed for Orange County, and then obviously a coach that we'll talk about next week in Danny Stone that came from Phoenix as well. I went with a B+ for Ryan, and Larry went with a B. Dylan, go for it.
I gave Ryan Flood, who, yes, made 3 appearances totaling 102 minutes for Phoenix this year, I gave him a C. I was not super thrilled, I guess, with what I saw, but I'm probably being really harsh on him because he was unfortunately a center back in the 4-2 loss in Colorado. I'm really starting to think I'm just going to have like nightmares about Colorado Springs after this year. He did kind of work his way back to the left side, and typically kind of an advanced left-sided player, more of the midfielder or winger that he more naturally is. Still, when Ryan Dogman is the guy that you are tasked with replacing, my expectations for you are pretty high. And then when Pedro Guimaraes shows up and is really good and is 16, then you see a B for Pedro Guimaraes and a C for Ryan Flood. And DK gave him a B-. So I don't feel too far off with my intense criticism. That being said, he did have some pretty fun hair for a big part of the year. So I do hope he wins at least that award later on this year.
I don't think we do that award anymore, Dylan. So unfortunately, there's no favorite hair. That's just a tough one to
bring
do.
It back.
That's just a tough one to do because players have different hairstyles throughout the year, and it's hard to get good pictures of the hairstyles. So that's the only reason it's not there. So, but if you want to take on that role of bringing that award back, you can go to all the matches, get photos of all the different hairstyles. So we have a library of that. With that said, speaking Dylan grading, if Ryan Flood is here for the full season performing at the level he does, maybe we get something in the B's like the rest of us did. With that said, we are done with grades for this episode. The remaining players will be graded next week along with the coaches. And for the first time ever, we have 3 coaches we will be grading for the end of the season due to the way the season went with multiple coaches. Any last thoughts, Dylan, before we wrap things up?
I am just so glad that you spent the last 59 minutes blaming everything on me and insinuating that I'm being harsh and only grading poorly because guys have had the misfortune of getting hurt.
Well, I mean, I'm listening to what you say. Hey, they played well, but they only played 15 matches, so I had to give them a F+. So that's where I come with my critiques on that. It
not
just
even a real
like,
grade.
It makes it sound like you're trying to penalize them for getting hurt when most of the time you get hurt and you don't control it. And by the way, that takes us to what I learned this episode, that Dylan is a really harsh grader of these players. And so if any of the players or any of the listeners have a complaint about grades, make sure you send it to care of Dylan to let him know how horrible he did and how he is wrong.
Yeah.
Dylan, what did you learn?
Yeah, I was gonna say, really, the best place that you could submit all of your complaints is the Orange and Black Soccer Cast's Blue Sky account, because that's right, kids. We know a good trend when we see one, and so our beloved producer has created a Blue Sky account for this podcast, and that's where you could submit all your complaints. What did I learn this week? Yeah, I think I am maybe too harsh of a grader. I think I need to be nicer next year.
Just send the complaints to Dylan at OCSCpodcast.com so he can get those complaints.
That's true. One I guess other thing is I didn't learn this, but everyone we've talked about tonight kicks a ball around professionally or at an academy level and has played more professional minutes and gotten closer to being at the very elite of the sport than I ever have or ever will. So I'm a bit jealous, I guess, is maybe where my harshness comes from.
I'm surprised that you didn't realize that until now. Again, reminder, end of the year, we like to do a awards show. That's in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today, we will do our end of season awards. We ask you to go on and vote for your favorites. You can go to vote.ocscpodcast.com. Try to make it as easy as we could. We gave you a website that you can just type in, you'll get right there. Or if you follow us on social media, we'll be blasting the link through over the next couple of weeks to get people to vote. Because we want, the more votes we get, the more honest the reaction is, instead of just Dylan stuffing the ballots with 20 votes or 100 votes to get his way like he always does. Dylan.
That's true. I'm going to win best hair. This is the most important election that is remaining in 2024. If not, maybe the most important election of 2024. So, hey, you're probably really good at voting. It was not that long ago that we all had to do it. Bust out those skills again. Consider that the practice round. Make sure you nail it this time, okay? All right, I believe in you.
There we go. So with that said,
OCSCpodcast.com.
What was that?
Vote.ocscpodcast.com.
Perfect. So again, just a reminder, what's going to happen here is we are going to wrap this up. We have more coming next week. The final batch of players, the award show in 2 weeks. And then after that, we will be taking a break for the remainder of the season, or for the start of the 2025 calendar year, until things until the ball starts rolling with all the fun stuff happening, preseason matches, all that fun stuff. So look forward to all of that amazing action happening. Again, follow us on social medias to know everything that's going to be happening. I guess the only thing left I can say is for Dylan, for producer Andy, and for, I don't know, what else? For myself. And I'm only stalling because I'm having trouble with this system here, so I apologize.
Hey, I just want to, I tried a new beer tonight. This one's from Patagonia, and Deschutes. They combined. I don't know why these two brands have combined, but they made a pretty good beer. So, Ray, what'd you have to drink tonight?
Oh, I didn't go as good as you. I did Modelo.
Wow, that is so unfortunate. Of all the wonderful options that you have. And hey, while we're here, grab yourself a season ticket next year. Support the club. They've done such a good thing. One great thing the club did this year, there were a lot. Oh, man. Oh, they didn't give up. They crawled back from the near basement of this league and still made Colorado, the eventual winners of it all, take 120 minutes to beat us. So that's a pretty dang good thing they did this year.
Yeah, one change you would make to the club or the league.
No more turf fields ever again. Ever.
Or baseball fields.
Or baseball fields.
Yes, get rid of those things. Hey, the one player that I'd like to see to come to OCSC, it's only because they need a job. They haven't had a job for like a year and a half. Bring Tilly Alley out to Orange County. He needs a job.
Tomas Gomez.
And he's friends with Harry Forster, so he knows people in the area. So, hey. All right.
No,
With
okay.
that said, we're done wasting time. We're ready to wrap this thing up. I want to thank everyone. Thank you for listening and commenting with us. Hey, this is the Orange and Black Soccer Cast. We are out.